Welcome friends to Farm Fresh Designs 59. Today's video is actually my first Christmas video and I'm excited to show you some new products. So the decoupage papers that I'll be using today are by Decoupage Central. And today is Thursday, August the 17th. And tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, these papers plus a lot more will be listed on their website. So if you see any of these that you like, make sure to go out in the morning and get them before they all get gone. So my first project with one of the papers is a scrap piece of wood that I found out in my wood pile. And I am staining it with Dixie Belle Voodoo Gel Stain. And it's about maybe half of an inch thick. Once it gets all dry, I'm just dry brushing Rust-Oleum Chiffon Cream paint. And I'm just putting a really light coat on it. But now most of this is going to be covered up by the print that I'm using. So my first print is a Highland cow that has like a little frame around her face. Now, actually, the papers that I'm using today are with copy paper. The ones that you will purchase will actually be decoupage paper. But Janelle with Decoupage Central, to be able to get these prints to me, I had to go and have them printed off. So the ones that you'll see today are going to be shiny because they're made with copy paper. But the ones that you purchase will not be. So I wanted to let you know that. So I tore off all around the outside edges, and then I used Tim Holtz Distressing Ink to go around the edges to kind of make it a little bit dark. Now I'm using Amazing Casting Resin to make some different pieces to put on this particular print that I'm using. Now, Amazing Casting Resin, I know that you've seen me use it before. It's 2 different parts, and you put in equal parts. Part A, you put in first, and it's clear. And part B is kind of a yellowy liquid, and once you start stirring it up and it turns clear, it's going to be ready to go. And you need to be ready to pour it in the molds right then. And it sets up in about 10 minutes, and it comes out white. And so the reason I'm trimming it off right here is because there was a little bit of overpour. Now, I undoubtedly always make up just a little bit more than what I need. So I like to have plenty of molds ready so that I can pour it in that so I don't waste it. Now, that first mold above his head was from last year's Christmas mold. And it's the IOD Holly Lane. And that is a mold that I actually had left over from last Christmas. And then all these extra little molds that I'll be putting around the print, I actually made those when I was making this video. So once they got all made, I painted them with Waverly's Moss paint. But I wanted it to be a little bit more the color of the holly pieces that are on the decoupage paper. And so what I did is after I got them all finished, then I'm using Waverly's Steel Gray to just go over it to kind of tone that green down. And then once I get through with all that, then there are some holly berries kind of scattered here and there. And I go back and I paint those with Waverly Red. And I think it was actually a lacquer color. So all of this is all finished, but because this copy paper was a little bit shiny, I wanted to tone it down. So I took some Dixie Belle Voodoo Gel Stain, and I'm just antiquing it to tone down that shininess from the copy paper. And once again, you might not want to do this if you use the actual decoupage paper. And then because I wanted to make it just seem a little bit more distressed, I put a little bit of that gel stain on all the different molds, but I wiped it off really fast. I just wanted it to all look really just old and distressed. And if you'll notice, you see very little of that wood. So if you're somebody that doesn't like dry brushing, sometimes I don't like it. But usually when you dry brush, you're going to be putting something on top. So it kind of keeps it from being so the white spots. It doesn't show up so much. So here is the final product. And I'm going to say it's a little girl because her little pink nose, but I just think she's so precious. And it can be a shelf sitter, or I could put like a little hanger on it, or I could even put like a little twine rope up at the top and hang it. But I think it turned out really pretty. So what do you think? Now, when I was growing up and I was around cows all the time, I was never around these beautiful cows. I was always around milk cows. Okay, so my next project is a wooden cigar box, and I'm painting it with Rust-Oleum chiffon cream. And the print on the top is not indented in it, so I just go on and paint right over it. Now watch what I do. I put those little popsicle sticks when you open it up, just so that the two edges wouldn't dry together. Now, I love this blue grain stripe paper because I'm going to be adding something on top that is this same color blue. And once again, it's that copy paper, so that's why it's a little bit shiny. And I'm using DIY liquid patina to put it on. And then I am using just some saran wrap to push it down, and then I use a brayer. And decoupage paper is not normally this hard to kind of make it lay down good, but it's copy paper, and that's why. Now, this particular sheet has 3 different churches on it, and I like this particular piece just because there's 3 different prints on it. Now, there's going to be another print that is just one 8.5 by 11, and it's just one whole just church. But I wanted to make 3 different little projects, and so that's why I got this particular one. Now, I'm going all around and I'm tearing off because I want to get right to the very edge of that print. I didn't want to have anything extra around it. And then I'm using Tim Holtz Distressing Ink to go around those edges, because since this is copy paper, then when I tear it, the edges are white, and I did not want them to be white. Plus, it kind of helps it to blend in just a little bit better. Now, as I was going around the edges and I was tearing off the extra, I wanted to make sure that that bottom part below the church was on the particular project. But as I was tearing it, it reminded me of like a snow globe where the top part is rounded and then there's like a little base to put it on. And as I was thinking about what it looked like once I tore the extra pieces off, that's when I went a different route. Now, normally I would just go on and put the liquid patina right on that blue grain stripe paper, but because this is copy paper, I put it on the back of that paper and I'm putting it on. And so I can't wait for you to see how I finish it off. Okay, before we finish it off, I've got to show you what I'm going to use to finish it off. Now this time I'm using hot glue in these molds. And you'll notice that I have 2 hot glue guns. One has a very narrow nozzle. It's a real tiny little nozzle. And it actually comes with different sized nozzles, but I just always keep the little tiny one on it. And that's good for going into those little teeny places on a particular mold. And over on the left-hand side is my other hot glue gun that has a wider nozzle, where I will use that one when I have a bigger piece to put hot glue in. And so these are different molds made with Redesign with Prima. And I will link all of this stuff in the description box below. But the reason I'm using hot glue on this is because it needs to be flexible, because I'm going to be using these pieces to kind of border the church to make it look more like a snow globe. And so I'm painting all of these pieces with Rust-Oleum chiffon cream. And if you'll look at them right down at the bottom, see how clear they are? That's how they come out. And so sometimes it takes a couple coats because they're clear like that, because it doesn't always cover it really well that first time. And so I've just got several different little pieces that I'm going to piece together once I put it on top of my little box. And what I like about putting it with hot glue is it can kind of melt it all together, and it looks sort of seamless. Now this is IOD China Blue ink, and this will be the first time I'm using it. So I have a blank little pad, and you just pour some on, and I take a popsicle stick and I just kind of push it in. Now, look at this little stamp. It says, "I'm praying for you." So this will make a great gift, maybe at Christmas or for any time, for a pastor, and I could use it and put like a little gift card in it, because this is just a really narrow box. And I had that stamp, so I thought that would be a sweet way to finish off the inside of it. Now, as I'm placing it around this church, there are some pieces that are just a little bit longer, but because it's made out of hot glue, it makes it really easy to trim. Now look down here at the bottom. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. So I take the hot glue gun and I run it around the edge of that paper, and then I take that little particular mold that I made out of hot glue, and I'm twisting it to make it be the shape that I need it to be. And that's why I wanted to use hot glue on this particular one. Now on the previous one where I used resin, the only reason I used resin on that one was because that top mold was made out of resin, so I thought I would just be consistent with that particular piece. But I love the way that this turned out, and so it looks a little bit like a snow globe. So what do you think? Or you're like, good gracious, Myra, that doesn't look like a snow globe. But it just kind of gave the appearance of what it might look like. And I'm just piecing it together, and that hot glue, when you press those two edges of different pieces together, and then the hot glue melts, and then all of that stuff melts all at the same time, it's great, and you can't really see any seams. So, but it's still a little bit too stark for me, so I'm using Dixie Belle Grunge Gray Wax to just dry brush over the top of that mold, just to kind of tone it down just a little bit. And here's my final project. Now, one thing that I forgot to turn the camera on, you're going to see all around the edges of the outside box, I used the China Blue ink to do a crackle stamp all around the edges, and see how you can see it right there? And it was just something that I got off of Amazon. It's just a little one. All right, my next two pieces are just two more little blocks of wood, and I'm using the chiffon cream on these. But remember, on that first piece of paper that had the bigger church on it, there were two smaller churches. So I'm just going to make some little shelf sitters. Now, this is an IOD mold, and it's one of the frames mold. And I think you've heard me say before, if I've got my molds out, especially with these frames mold, I use a lot of them. And so this is actually one that I just already had made up. And I'm painting it with Rust-Oleum chiffon cream. Now, on the next one, I'm actually using a newer mold, and this is by Redesign with Prima. And I believe I used it in my last video. And these frames are so beautiful. And they remind me a lot of those Anthropologie mirrors. And then I need a little bit of trim. And so this is just an older mold that I have. And this mold has a little bit of cornstarch in it, but you do not have to put cornstarch when you put in resin. It's just left over from the last time I used it. And I'm not using the same trim on both of these little signs, but that's fine. And so the one that's made out of resin, the reason that I made it out of resin was because I already had it out for something else. So that was why I did this particular one. And sometimes when you do hot glue molds, it does take a little bit more time to make those molds. And if I'm in a hurry sometimes and I want it to go ahead and be ready to paint, and I'm impatient, then I will make a resin mold. And that was a lot of the reasons why I wanted to do this, because I didn't have very much time to get all of these together to have it ready for this video. And so those two other little churches, I just tore all around the edges just so that they would fit on the inside of these frames. And then I'm going to be putting these on top of those little scrap blocks of wood. Now this is all I have left of that blue grain stripe paper, and I just wanted to use it the best I could. And so I tore it off and I dry brushed around with that China blue ink around the edges of it, just so that it would look more distressed. And then I'm putting that particular little church over on the left-hand side. And then that mold that I made a while ago, the little trimming mold, then I'm putting that on the other side. And that's just a little makeup brush, and I'm using the China blue ink. And I will link these little brushes. Lisa from our Shabby Cottage is the one who got me to using them, and I love them. Okay, on my next block, I want to have somewhat of a grain stripe, but I don't have any more of that paper. So this is a stencil, and I believe it's a JRV stencil, and it's a grain stripe. And so I'm just using the China blue ink on this one. And this is actually my first time for using these little brushes, and I wasn't really sure if I was going to be good at it, but I really like the way it turned out. But I'm trying to be really careful because I don't want that stencil to move, because on this particular stencil, there's a lot of different grain stripes on it. Okay, and so I go ahead and add that little mold with the church on it, and then I go around the edges and just put a little bit of the China blue ink all around the edges of the frames and the little trim, just so that it all blends together. And these are just some little shelf sitters that you can give away or you can keep. Or think about it, maybe you like these little prints, but you don't want to put them on a sign. You can put them on a Christmas ornament, and these would make great gifts. Gracious, that was hard to say. Great gifts for Christmas to maybe your Sunday school teacher or your Bible study teacher, or for your children to give to their teachers. So I just think they're really pretty, and I do have a lot of you who love blue. Okay, I'm super excited about this project. Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait for you to see it at the end. Okay, so this is a real old drawer that I had, and it's rustic on the outside, but I'm using it anyway. And I used Dixie Belle Boss, which is like a stain blocker on the inside, because it was old and yucky, and I loved it when I saw it, but it sure was yucky when I bought it. And it's got that old chippy paint on top. And so I don't know if you figured out what I'm going to be making, but I can't wait for you to see. So that Boss has been sitting on there for 24 hours. And I'm going back with Rust-Oleum chiffon cream. And you see how I poured some of it out in a little bowl? Is because just in case, if any of that stain came through when I started brushing it on again, then I didn't want to put my paintbrush back into that can of paint. So I just poured some out in a little cup. Okay, so this is another paper made by Decoupage Central, and this is a little snowman. And it's one of those prints that has a half sheet snowman, and then there's another half of the sheet that's got quarter pieces of snowman. So I put the bigger snowman on this one, and then after it dries, I use the finger sander to get those edges off. And if you don't have one of those finger sanders, those things are amazing. I love it. And so I'd want to go ahead and get all that extra paper off on the edges. And then I'm just using my cellophane wrap to kind of press it down. Okay, so I go ahead, I figured out where I'm going to place my little wood scrap, and I put it down with hot glue. Okay, here we go. Now, the next thing I'm using is that little white stuff down at the bottom. Is actually, eyelash yarn, and it's real shiny, and it's left over from last Christmas, and I love it. And I, at the time, didn't have any fake snow, so that's why I pulled this out. And I'm putting it down with hot glue, and this time I have a little finger protector because I was using my hot glue gun and the hotter one, and I didn't want to burn my finger. And trust me, there may have been a couple times where I have burnt my finger, so trust me. All right, so now what I'm doing is I'm just putting down some DIY liquid patina on that little drawer, is the back of it. And then that stuff that I'm sprinkling on top is called diamond dust. And it's just real sparkly, but it's kind of a little bit sharp. So if you use some, you don't want to run your finger back over where you put it on, because it is sharp just a little bit, but it's not going to cut you, but it's going to sting just a little bit. So normally when I put diamond dust on stuff, then I kind of put the little glue that I'm going to use, and then I sprinkle it on, and then I kind of shake it a little bit to get the extra off, but I didn't need to on this one because I didn't use that much. But I'm wanting to give the appearance in the background of just something that you would see when it snows. After it snows and the sun shines, you just see those little sparkle lights coming off from the snow, and it's so pretty. And right here, it looks like that snowman is just a little bit foggy, but it's not. And so once I put that diamond dust on, I decided to put a little bit more on the sides because I want it to have the full effect. So have you figured out what it's going to be yet? Oh, I can't wait for you to see. Okay, so I'm getting all that finished up, and now these are some little bottle brush trees that I got. I don't know if I got them at Walmart or Dollar Tree. They're just left over from last year, and I'm just using hot glue to put those on. But one thing that you can't see is I sprayed them with that fake snow, and I wanted them to be a little bit whiter, and up close they are a little bit more whiter. It looks like they have snow on it. Now, these are some old snowflakes that I made with resin, but I didn't paint them because they were already white. And so I just am putting a little bit of glue on it, and then I'm putting the diamond dust on it. And now I'm hot gluing those into the inside of it. I put two bigger ones, and then a little teeny one I put on the edge of that sign. Okay, now then I decided that I'm going to make a banner to go across the front of my shadow box. Okay, so this is just, I went out to my woodworking pile and I found this little scrap piece of wood, and I just used my miter saw and I just cut 5 different triangles, and it's real thin wood, and I painted them all white. And then this is one of those big punchers that it will punch through thin wood. Now, I do have to push a little bit hard on it, but it's okay. I'm still strong. And then I'm just using my finger sander because it is a little cheap piece of wood, and I don't want to get a splinter in my finger because I do have a reputation for always getting splinters in my finger. So I'm putting a hole on either side of the wider part of the triangle up at the top. Now, these are these little letter stamps that they click together, and they are amazing. And so I like it because it makes all the letters in the word just be right side each other. And so that way you don't have to, it makes it even. I don't know how to explain it. Okay, so on 3 of those little triangles, I put let it snow. And then, so 3 of them have words, and then there's 2 more of those little triangles. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting a little snowflake on those. And then this is a piece of lace, really skinny lace, and the little hot glue gun over to the left, that's my low temperature one. And so what I did so that I could make that lace kind of look kind of like a shoestring that's knotted at the end that's real stiff, I just put a little bit of hot glue on it and then twist it with my fingers, and that makes it on the end where it won't ravel at all when I'm running it through these little holes. And I go ahead and I put enough lace ribbon on it so that I won't run out at the end and have to start all over. I can't wait for you to see it. This is so, so cute. I love the way it turned out. And really, honestly, I wasn't sure exactly where I was going to go with this all the way. And so I'm just gluing this up to the top of this little box on the outside. And then the little extra piece of lace, I'm tucking that under the edge of that box. And look, isn't that just so cute? I so, so love this. I just think it turned out so sweet. But here's my little decoupage paper block of wood. But I added a lot of other stuff to it. And I just think it's precious. Look at there. See those little words? I just think it's so, so cute. And those are made with those little stamps that click together. And I believe I got them at Michael's. If you ever want to get any, they're really neat. And they have the uppercase set and they have the lowercase set. But I think this is probably my favorite piece today. I was super excited about this one. So I hope you like it. But what do you think? Look at that. All that little glitter, all that little diamond dust, it's all sparkling, and I just love it. But I love little shadow boxes. Okay, so my next project to finish up is those other little snowmen that were on the other piece or the other edge of that decoupage paper. And this is actually a little tote that I bought at Target recently in the little dollar section. Well, it's not dollar anymore because I think it was $5. But it's really well made. And so I'm using that grain stripe stencil again, but this time I'm using the IOD red ink, and I think the color is called Tomato. And the little stencil wasn't long enough to go all the way around the front of it, so I had to kind of piece it up to where it would have the little grain stripe stencil all the way across. Now, on the bottom, on the other side of that decoupage paper, there were 2 quarter pieces, and one of them had a bigger snowman, and then it had like a little baby snowman. And then the other little quarter piece had just one snowman. So what I did was I tore them off all the way to the very edge, and I'm going around the edge with Tim Holtz Distress ink, and I'm making me a little snowman family, and I'm decoupaging that straight onto that tote, and I just think it's so sweet. Now, I could have cut that, and I think sometimes people call it fussy cut, but it was easy enough to tear. But the reason I'm putting the distress ink on it is because, once again, it's that copy paper, and I wanted it to look a little bit more like something that you would use if you were using real decoupage paper. So I get them all glued on, and I just think they're so sweet. And I'm not sure I wanted the bigger one to be the daddy snowman. But once I started putting them on, I liked the slightly smaller one. And so I put him just a little bit higher, so he'd be just a little bit taller than Mama Snowman, or Snow Lady, or whatever you want to call her. Okay, and here's some more snowflakes, and I'm putting the diamond dust on them. And this time, I'm going to be shaking it off, and I've got that little red pan that sometimes you can use with glitter. And so that I can pour that rest of that diamond dust back into that little jar of it. And the glue that I'm putting on the snowflakes, it doesn't stick to it, so you don't have to worry about putting glue back into that little container. And then I've got all these little snowflakes all around it. And they are made out of resin, because remember, I already had a lot made up anyway. And so these are just leftovers. And so at Christmas time, I do tend to make extra molds. That way, when I need them, they'll already be ready. And here's the final product. I just think that's sweet. Look at that little baby snowman. I just think it's so sweet. Now, his hat looks a little bit more like a little cone or whatever, but these two little pieces of snowman decoupage paper weren't really meant to go together, but I tore them so that they could be a little family. And then I painted the handle of that little tote with Rust-Oleum linen white chalk paint because I didn't have to paint that tote at all. It was already white. And then that's just some greenery that I got at Hobby Lobby. Okay, friends, we are at the end of the video. I hope that you've enjoyed these new Christmas releases and got some good ideas as we get ready for Christmas. But this was a fun video to make. But remember, in the morning at 8 o'clock, these new prints are going to drop onto the website. So if you want some, go get them before they sell out. Because they're just really sweet. And there's some other pretty ones, and I just didn't have enough time to get all of them made. Now, I was planning on putting this video out on Saturday, but we found out that the papers would be in, and so we wanted to go ahead and put it up for tonight. So I will have a video out for Saturday that I was originally planning on putting up for today. So make sure to come back on Saturday, and it's going to be some more Shabby Chic projects. They're not going to be Christmas, and there might be a little pumpkin involved, but I wanted to go ahead and put these out. And as we wind down the summer, yes, I'll be sprinkling in some Christmas, because when you do crafting, you've got to be ready, and you don't want to wait, until too close to Christmas, because you're going to want to go ahead and put it out. But I appreciate you so much. As of the time I'm doing this voiceover, friends, we are already over 3,000 subscribers, and I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate you and all of your sweet support. But make sure to comment and tell me what's your favorite, like this video, and subscribe if you aren't already part of our family. And I will see you Saturday morning. Bye, guys.